In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans to add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one, and even if I lived to be 1,000, it still would not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. So this is Brother Shareef with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Shareef Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. And this is a new technology that I'm thankful for, YouTube Live. Not Facebook Live, YouTube Live. So this is directly connected to the channel. So those who are already subscribers, I appreciate you tuning in, subscribing, and sharing. But now it's really critical for you to continue to subscribe and mostly share the channel to those who have like minds, to those who you think can benefit from the vast variety of messages that is on the channel. So I greatly appreciate your participation, and I strongly advise you to share the channel with those of like minds. So tonight's message, sorry for coming on so late, but again, I'm testing out this technology, and it's a time where I meditate and where the house is calm. So if I continue to do this YouTube Live with the grace of the Most High, with the mercy of the Most High, I will have it a little earlier time, because I know people have busy lives, and some people have to get up in the morning for school or work, or get their children ready for school. So I will start tuning in early, but this is the time that I chose for tonight. So tonight's message is entitled The Curse of Willie Lynch, Our Time to Rise. The Curse of Willie Lynch, Our Time to Rise. And before I get into that, just last weekend in Pennsylvania, York, Pennsylvania, my hometown, we had an economic blueprint seminar for business there at the CA. Thank you those who at the CA who let us use the facility. Mr. Chip Dalton, Mr. Bobby Simpson let us use the facility there so we can have our economic empowerment blueprint seminar, something that we hope will empower the people there in York, PA and abroad. So briefly, we discussed opening new businesses there for ourselves and for the community, reopening and using community centers that are not being properly used, in supporting existing black businesses and collaborating with business people and other businesses. So those are the 4 main areas that we covered last week at the CA there in York, PA. It was called the Economic Blueprint for Economic Success for York, PA and abroad. That's what we covered. Again, supporting black business, supporting existing black businesses, collaborating with business individuals and other businesses, opening businesses and reopening and properly using community centers there, because there are community centers there have been closed for years. It's right there in the community, and they're not being properly used or used at all. So those are the things we discussed. So we are at a time now, family, where we really have to get serious about economic empowerment. We really have to get serious about economic empowerment. I talked about before in some of my other lectures that different time periods call for different actions. Back in the 80s and 90s, we needed lectures and seminars on how we were the original man and how we built the pyramids and how the original Egyptians were black, and the origin of religion and African spirituality. And we still need that, especially for our youth. But what should be priority number 1 right now is economic empowerment. That's what's going to even the playing field. That's what's going to get us out of this jam that we're in this wicked society in this country, is economic empowerment. Every other ethnic group is coming here, empowering themselves mostly off of our backs. So we have to take the same mindset. But a motto or a phrase that I want you to keep in your mind while I'm speaking is, our rise don't come at the expense at someone else's demise. I'm gonna say that again. Our rise as African and Black people will not come at the expense of someone else's demise. I will explain that as I go through. I'm gonna say it one more time because I want you to get this. Our rise will not come at the expense at someone else's demise. Okay, talking about us as Black people and Africans. So the Hour of Power is on a mission to economically empower ourselves and our communities that we live in. All the lectures and the debates, that's not no priority. I'm never into debating another Black man or Black woman. But all the lectures, if someone is coming to your town charging $20 or $30 for a ticket, they should leave something that is going to economically empower you when they leave. If it ain't about that, then I don't know what to say. But what the Hour of Power is doing, we are on a mission to create businesses and do those other 3 platforms that we talked about. Reopening community centers, opening businesses, and supporting Black businesses and collaborating. We're doing it on both ends. We're doing it in Pennsylvania there, and we're working on it here in Durham, North Carolina. Just today, I interviewed Brother Yai. He had Durham Vegan Flavor Cafe about a year or 2 ago. He had to close it down, but now he has opened up a new one, 1720 Guest Road, building 18, I believe, there in Durham. So he has the new Vegan Flavor Cafe, and he's working on opening another one in Chapel Hill. If you're in the area, support that brother. Support that brother. He has healthy food there, and he can give you advice, him and his beautiful wife, on how to eat healthy and live a healthy life. That's Brother Yai there here in Durham, North Carolina. Over the weekend, I interviewed Brother Poe with Brother Poe's bookstore there in York, PA. He has one of the only bookstores there in York, PA, especially something that's going to cater to us. But he told me don't call it just a bookstore, okay? But he sends books to prisons. He has oils, incense there, shea butter. And like I said, he's sending books to brothers in prison, federal, state, and locally. That's what that brother is doing. That's called Poe's Bookstore. And we have some other business ventures that we're working on and almost ready to put in motion that's going to economically empower us and the community there in York, PA. So we're doing it on both ends, in York, PA, and here in Durham, North Carolina. This is what the Hour of Power is doing. Now, when it comes to economic empowerment, we have some psychological issues that's being an obstacle in preventing us from supporting Black business, opening Black business, and just us basically working together. We have 2 mental issues or syndromes, so to speak, going on that's preventing it or holding it up or making it difficult at all. That's what I briefly want to talk about tonight. One of them, you probably heard of it before, or at least seen this before. The Willie Lynch letter, the making of a slave, or better known as the Willie Lynch syndrome. For those who don't know, Willie Lynch was a slave owner back in the 1700s. He supposedly had slave plantations in America, but mostly in the British. But the slave owners here in America was having trouble with the slaves because we just didn't come here. Number one, we didn't come here as slaves. We came here as doctors, mathematicians, scientists, engineers, counselors. That's what we came here as, and then they made us slaves. But anyway, the slave masters here were having trouble controlling the slaves because we didn't just bow down. So they had a meeting with this man named Willie Lynch at the James River Bridge in 1712 because he was supposedly a successful slave owner. Okay, so they had a meeting with him, and he said, if you follow my method of how to control the slaves, I guarantee you will have them at least mentally in slavery for the next 300 years. And he had this meeting with them at the banks at the James River Bridge in Virginia in 1712, over 300 some years ago. He said, if you make differences among the slaves in 3 different areas, you will control them for the next 300 years. He said, I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. Fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. He said you make small differences, big differences, and this will cause the differences in division between them. The young against the old, the dark skin against the light skin, the curly hair or the thin hair against the thick hair. Any difference you can get amongst them and make it a big difference, he said you can control them, and that's where it leads into the fear, distrust, and envy. And I really want to concentrate on the distrust. He said, look, use these methods, you can control them for the next 300 years. So the basic question is, do we have fear? Of course we do. We got 300-pound men playing football and basketball, 250-pound, 300-pound men playing football and basketball, knocking each other's head off, knocking each other all around the court. But then if you tell them to stand up for white supremacy, stand up against white supremacy, against police brutality, you're hard pressed to get any of them to say and do anything. Fear. You have people in the workplace that see we're being mistreated. You have 1 or 2 that stand up and the rest stand by like sheep and don't want to say nothing. Fear. We know we have distrust. We have distrust. I just saw it at our meeting last week, and a good brother, Brother John, brought up that issue of the distrust. And we certainly have envy, the crabs in the barrel mentality. So we have a lot of things going on that is showing that the methodology that Willie Lynch put down, we're still suffering from it. He also said you can do a role reversal, which will divide the family. Getting a little off topic, but still on topic. He said a role reversal, where he said you get the family out. You get the biggest, baddest one, who everyone respects and almost fears, mainly the man. Bring him out. Tar and feather whip and beat him almost an inch of his life. And then when his wife, his children, his mother, father sees the one who they respect and almost fear the most being beat down like that, they will no longer depend on him for protection. They even went to the extent of saying, tie one leg and one arm to a horse this way, another leg and an arm to a horse that way, tar and feather him, light him on fire, then the horses will rip him apart. And when his wife, the one who she looks to for protection, sees him screaming and hollering and begging for mercy, she knows she will no longer be able to depend on him for protection, and he had to come to us, the white man, the slave master, for protection. And out of that fear, going back to the fear, she will raise her daughters strong-minded but independent, but the boys strong-bodied but weak in the mind. That's how they divided the family, with the Willie Lynch letter. Again, it ain't even a book, it's just a pamphlet, but it's power-packed. Only cost me $4. You must get this book. So that is one mental or psychological issue that we have with moving forward with just supporting business. And remember the motto that I talked about. Our rise doesn't come at the expense of someone else's demise. I'm gonna explain that in a few short seconds, and I'm gonna wrap this thing up. The other psychological or mental issue or syndrome that we have that prevents us from even supporting, starting, or supporting existing businesses is Stockholm Syndrome. Look it up, Stockholm Syndrome. It comes from Stockholm, Sweden, where 4 people, I believe, at a bank were held captive by some robbers, some thieves, and some thugs. And psychologists noticed after they looked at the whole case and analyzed it that the captives started having emotional ties to the captors, to the one who had put them in this situation. They started having an emotional tie and even started defending them. And when they tried to prosecute the perpetrators in the court case, those who were held captive were defending those who had did this crime against them, holding them captive. So the beater, the robber, the thief, the rapist, when he has captors people in captivity, the people in captivity through their close time and intimate time, so to speak, with them, the people who are held captive actually start developing an emotional tie to those who are inflicting this mental, physical, and emotional pain on them, even to the point of rape sometimes. They start developing emotional ties to them. Why am I talking about this? Don't this sound familiar? Weren't we stolen out of Africa? Weren't we put and still in some ways in captivity here in America? And don't a lot of us, and I mean a lot of us, still have love for our enemy? Defending them, upholding their foolishness and nonsense and murder and rape, miseducation, whatever you want to think and think of that these people have done to us. Many of us have Stockholm Syndrome. Again, Stockholm Syndrome is someone in captivity being held by a perpetrator or the captor. They start, during their time with them, they start having strong emotional ties to them to the point that they even defend them. Almost have a love and a connection to them. Psychologists have coined this phrase, and it came from Stockholm, Sweden. People in captivity having a strong emotional tie to those inflicting pain, mental, emotional, and physical, on them. Isn't it the same? We have been in captivity by a captor, taken out of our land, stripped of our language, our religion, our cultural norms. Anything, our culture, anything you can think of, it was taken from us. And somehow, some way, we have a strong emotional tie to our enemy, but hard on each other. Something is wrong with that. Now, so you got Stockholm Syndrome, the Willie Lynch Syndrome, stopping us from even doing business with each other. The businesses are supposed to empower us. Everyone else comes here by any means necessary and sets up business. The Arabs, the Indians, whoever comes on in our neighborhood, gives us everything we don't need: pork, liquor, alcohol, bad food, tobacco, whatever you want to call it. And they're making money off of us, sending their children to college, living in nice homes, nice neighborhoods, driving nice cars off of our backs. And we support it. But then when we try to have simple seminars like the Hour of Power is trying to do, and others around the country, we have all these barriers. These barriers that are preventing us from setting up business. What is wrong with us? And our rise isn't at the demise of someone else. I'm gonna explain that. How is me trying to set up a business for ourselves, for our community, racist? I've heard this silly talk by some silly Negroes saying that I'm not going to be a part of that because that's a racist program. That's what some people have said about the Hour of Power, and other people trying to do the same thing. I'm not going to be a part of that because that's a racist program. How is it a racist program? We're not keeping anyone from getting a job. We're not keeping anyone from getting a mortgage or a car loan or empowering themselves economically. That's racism. Black people don't have the capacity or the ability to do that if they wanted to. That's racism. That's racism. Oppressing someone economically, politically, socially. That's racism. So how is it that when we want to set up business for ourselves, it's looked at as racism or a racist program? Again, our rise isn't at the demise of any other group, ethnic group, race, or anyone. But I'm going to show you what the rise of how other people have came to the rise at the demise of us and other people. Us trying to start businesses, whether it's in Durham or York, is not going to come at the demise of anyone. It's for us like everyone else does. But I'm going to quickly show you how other people, meaning Europeans, have came to the rise economically at our demise. And you tell me how the two are the same. Now, have you ever heard of the Berlin Conference? I want you to pay close attention to this. See there? The Scramble for Africa. The Scramble for Africa, the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference was a conference that took place in 1884 in Africa among European countries. They actually had a conference. I just showed it to you. And this is the document, The Scramble for Africa. So in 1884, I'm going to read this to you. These European countries came together for the division and the divvying up of Africa. But guess what? Africa wasn't invited. It's called the Berlin Conference. Took place in 1884. I'm going to briefly read this to you and then I'll be done. After four centuries of rape, pillaging the land, removing people out of Africa, virtually Europe had taken over all of Africa. But that's 4 centuries now. Now, in November of 1884, talking about this Berlin Conference, the imperial chancellor and architect of the German Empire named Otto von Bismarck convened a conference of 14 states, including the United States, to settle the political partitioning of Africa. Partition means to divide. Bismarck not only wanted to expand German spheres of influence in Africa, but he wanted to play Germany's colonial rivals against one another so it all wouldn't be lost. Of these 14 nations, most of them were France, Germany, Great Britain, and Portugal, who played major parts in the conference and controlling Africa at that time. The Berlin Conference was Africa's undoing all at one time. Africa had gained some kind of independence in 1950. But through this conference, the country, all its resources were being partitioned through this conference. The French dominated most of West Africa. The British dominate most of East and Southern Africa. You've heard of these British East Indian companies. The Belgians acquired the vast majority of what we know now is the Congo. Listen to that about the Congo. So 14 states met. Germany, France, Great Britain, and Portugal, and had a conference about the dividing up of the natural resources of Africa. This is what you call someone's rise coming at someone else's demise. Brother Shareef, the hour of power, or Brother Umar trying to open a school is not at the demise of any other ethnic group, but we get labeled as racist. What in the hell is wrong with you, some of you Negroes? You need to wake up. This is the rise of someone else economically at the demise of someone else. Going back to the Congo, have you ever heard of this demon? Hope you can see it. That's King Leopold II and his African slaves in the Congo there. Yes, what did he do? Listen to this. King Leopold and his overtake of the Congo. The European colonial power shared one objective of Africa. I'm reading this from the Berlin Conference still. One objective in African colonies, exploitation. This is their own words. The British established a system of indirect rule over much of their domain, leaving indigenous power structure in place and making local rulers representatives of the British crowns. It was unthinkable in the Portuguese colonies, and it was harsh and direct control was the rule. The French sought to create culturally assimilated elites which would represent French ideals in the colony. Now to what went on in the Congo. In the Belgian Congo, however, King Leopold II, that demon that I just showed you, who had financed the expeditions that skated Belgium claim in Berlin, embarked on a campaign of ruthless exploitation. His enforcers mobilized almost the entire Congolese populations to gather, listen to this, rubber, kill elephants for their ivory, and build public works to improve export routes. For failing to meet quotas, entire communities were massacred. Talking about this King Leopold. Killing and maiming became a routine in the colony, which horror was the common denominator. After the impact of the slave trade, King Leopold's reign of terror was Africa's most severe demographic disaster. Talking about King Leopold in the Congo. By the time it ended, After a growing outcry around the world, listen to this, as many as 10 million Congolese had been murdered, meaning African people in the Congo. That's what happened to them by this King Leopold II. And again, he was after rubber, killing of elephants to get the ivory from them, and building better to improve exports, to bring in and to export goods for business. This is what this King Leopold did. And he would kill whole colonies if they wouldn't meet quotas. Had them working in mines and caves, little children. These are slaves right here. Look at that. And that's that demon, that devil right there, King Leopold. You want to talk about Hitler? How come no one talks about this man? He's killed as many as 10 million Congolese Africans there in Africa, from the Congo. 10 million at the least. That's what you call an economic rise at the demise of another people. How in the hell are we comparable, or even in the same sentence or breath is that? Who have I killed? Who have I put working in mines, working from sun up to sundown? Who have I done that to? Who has Brother Umar done that to? Or anyone else who's trying to develop black business to empower ourselves in the community? We haven't done that. This is what you call the rise, economic rise of a people at the demise of someone else. The Berlin Conference. Please look this up. It's hardly ever talked about. The scramble for Africa, the Berlin Conference. 14 states, mostly Europeans. France, it was all Europeans. France, the Great Britain, Portugal, all had a meeting in 1884 called the Berlin Conference about the divvying up of Africa. So they can take the gold, the diamonds, the rubber, the oil, everything we need in this world is in Africa. They're economically poor, but resourcefully they're rich. How can that be? The Berlin Conference and the transatlantic slave trade and the sub-Saharan slave trade by Arabs and on and on and on. We're not doing none of that. We just want to economically empower us in our communities, and we get labeled as racist. Our people have lost their mind. And again, the way that came about is the Willie Lynch syndrome, which we must break today. ASAP, and the Stockholm Syndrome. Again, the Stockholm Syndrome is a captor, a demon, a devil, putting someone in captivity, and through their intimate time together, meaning the captor and the one held in captive, starts having an emotional tie to those inflicting the pain on them, to the point that they'll start defending them. That's black people in America. We've been taken out of Africa, held in captivity for years and centuries, and somehow we have an emotional tie to our oppressor. This ain't no racist talk, it's just what it is. Just look at our situation and you tell me if we don't have Stockholm Syndrome, an emotional tie to those who have inflicted a mental and emotional pain on us beyond belief. No one in the annals of history have suffered like black people. The rape, the murder, seeing your mother being raped by someone else, being forced to have sex with your own mother, seeing your father being tied up to chains on a slave ship, and they link 4 or 5 people up to these balls and chains and then throw them overboard for the sharks to eat them alive. That's why so many sharks are in the Atlantic Ocean right now, because of our bones being littered at the bottom of the ocean. So we must empower ourselves economically. We must empower ourselves economically. That's the only thing that these people understand is economic power and military power. We can't match them militarily, not right now, but economically we can empower ourselves. Support black business, try to start your own business, and collaborate. That's what the Hour of Power is working on as we speak in York, PA, and Durham, North Carolina, and hope this message gets out to as many black communities as possible. We have to empower ourselves economically so we can do like what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Most Honorable Marcus Garvey taught us. Do for self. African for the Africans. So this is Brother Shareef with the Hour of Power. Today's message is entitled The Curse of Willie Lynch. The Curse of Willie Lynch. Our time to rise. But again, the motto of this message is our rise don't come at the expense of someone else's demise. We are simply trying to empower ourselves just like every other ethnic group does by any means necessary. The Arabs and all these other groups coming here selling pork, liquor, and alcohol. Well, Brother Shareef, I thought you were a Muslim. I am. I'm just an honest one. I do not agree with that. I do not agree, and nor does Islam agree with what's going on in Libya. And it is strictly forbidden to be selling pork, liquor, and alcohol. Shame on you who you call yourselves Muslim. So this is Brother Shareef with the Hour of Power. Go to Hour of Power, Shareef Hamid on YouTube. Subscribe and share the channel so we can continue to lift the mind, body, and soul of our people. I leave you in peace as I came. Assalamu alaikum to my Muslim family. Hotep to my Black conscious family. Praise the Lord to my Christian family. Shalom to my Hebrew Israelite family. And what's good to you, to our people in the street. Support Black business so we can continue to empower ourselves. I'll leave you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.